Good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are over this particular day. Once again, we meet on our online discussion where we share some of these academic related concepts. And today we are going to discuss some issues of styles on how we can write our thesis or the dissertations. We normally know that when we are carrying out our study, we are collecting the data. We have the data with us. We analyze the data, and then we interpret the results. At the end of the day, we need to produce an academic document of which we'll be describing all the information of what we did so that we acquire a particular degree. So before we go for that, in the process in between, we normally ask ourselves some questions as related to what styles of the document should I produce? How should I write? And sometimes we tend to visit some word libraries to see different styles on how others are trying to report their findings in the thesis or the dissertation. Although this will be reflected by the universities of where you are doing your study or where you are attached, or the organization itself. However, we have several styles. We need also to understand. You should not be rigid to the kind of style that is associated with your organization. You need to know that there are other organizations with different styles. From where you can be attached to work in another university, you need to understand the different styles on how the thesis or the dissertation can be structured. And as I said, let me check this particular document. Why is not displaying? What the problem? Okay. Now, there are several styles of this thesis or dissertation writings. And they differ from one academic institution to another, or from one organization from which you are attached to perform your project or your PhD or your master's or whatever kind of academic related task. And today, I'm going to highlight you to only two most common styles on how we can write our thesis. And these are very, very, very important that we need to know. And they are common and they are normally reflected in various institutions. When I was trying to go through libraries of the world, I came to realize these are the two common styles of thesis writings and structuring. We have what we call the paper-based style, paper-wise based style. And we have what we call the chapter-wise based style. These are the two common styles that are commonly used by different institutions, different organizations, while trying to give the formats or the templates on how their students should write up the document pertaining their thesis or their dissertation. When we speak about the paper-based style, it differs from the so-called chapter-wise based style. What it differs is their structure, the way the materials are structured, their sequential, the arrangement of some components inside of the document. And therefore, I'm going to highlight you to these two commonly used formats. And therefore, depending on the institution where you are doing your study, you will find out yourself which one best fits for you to do. Some of the institutions can allow that a student should be flexible, should choose either the paper-wise style or the chapter-wise style. But what is important is you to understand what could be should be arranged and what should be written in a particular section or chapter in whatever they swell in these two styles of paper writing, not paper of thesis writing. Before I jump into that particular perspectives, I would like you to advise that Sometimes you need to visit my YouTube. If it's your first time, please subscribe it, and if necessary, you find that the information is relevant to some of your friends, you are not around, you are not hesitated, you should not avoid to share, distribute it accordingly to your friends, to your classmates, your official personnel, and others. My YouTube goes by the names of Research Techniques and Concept by Marunguja. If you find there are some relevant information that you need a detail for it, you can send me an email through that particular email, which is there indicated in the link. All right, let's start with the paper-wise based style. As the name implies, when we speak about the paper-wise styles of thesis or dissertation writing, here, the writers or the author of a particular thesis or dissertation should rely on the following format. And the main difference that takes this to be a paper style model of thesis or dissertation writing is that each of the hypothesis or the not hypothesis or per se, each of the objectives that the research was dealing with should be structured in a chapter-wise. That if you have 3 objectives, maybe objective now 1, objective 2, 3, 4, 5, each of these objectives should be given an independent chapter, and it should be discussed as an independent chapter in the following format. This is, let me take my pen so that it becomes easier for me to elaborate this. My pointer is somewhere here. Okay, I may use this one. All right. These are the chapters, and these are the components within the chapter. So I need to take you through this in the way that you will have no doubt at the end of the class. Normally, we have these preliminary informations, of which we'll be discussing about the cover page. Here you are speaking about your informations, past your details, the names, the codes, or whatever. We have the so-called dedications, we all know. The overall abstract will be here. The declarations will be there, certifications, acknowledgement, table of contents, list of figures, tables, and appendix, abbreviations. All this will follow under the so-called preliminary information, of which is not a chapter at all, is all the cover page. We generally say the cover page of your thesis. And then after we'll have the chapter 1. Under the chapter 1, we'll have to make a general introductions of the entire study of yours, from which we should also highlight some of the hypotheses and the objectives of your study. The details on what should be written in the introduction have made a separate video. Then when you visit in my YouTube, you'll find it, what should be included while writing the introductions of your thesis. And then after the chapter 1, which is all about the introduction, you go to the chapter 2, which is review of the literature. It might be the theoretical review, the empirical review, or the psychoanalytical review, depending on the nature of your study of which you are doing. It will the philosophy behind the nature of your study. It will reflect the nature and the modality on how you are going to review your literatures. If you need to create some theoretical, hypothetical assumptions and some graphs to depict some interaction of the variables and all those kinds, it's up to you, depending on the nature of it. But in all, chapter 2 is about review of the literature. After the review of the literature, we go to chapter 3 under this paper-wise style. Chapter 3 will be simply describing the studies area where you conducted your study. You make description, you show where it's found, their latitude, longitude, and whatever. The details on how we write the description of the study site, I will also make a separate video on that, a separate class with the details on this aspect. After the chapter 3, which is the descriptions of the study area, then we go to chapter 4. The chapter 4 now is there you start taking one objective of yours to another. Each objective should be given a separate chapter. Now, suppose objective number 1, it becomes chapter number 4. Under this objective number 1, the objective is explained or is structured in such a way that it has its own introduction, it has its own materials and methods, it has to depict their results, or that's any discussion depending on the modality of the university or the organization. Some they prefer to include results and discussion. Some they normally say result and discussion should be in a separate chapter, in a separate sections, not chapter, sections. Therefore, under this chapter number 5, this is objective number 1. You will name the objective, maybe the determination of the effect of COVID-19 in the population or whatever. That maybe your objective number 1 is dealing with determination of the effect of COVID. Now, under this section, you are going to make subsections of these objectives as introduction, as the way it appears in the paper. So it will have its own introduction. Then after introduction, you go to materials and method, where you're going to explain the research design, the modalities, the method on how you acquired your data, how you analyzed your data, and everything should appear on material methods. If you are doing issue related to sample, you need to explain the sample size, how do you get it, and all those. And then you go to the results, and then you complete with discussion. That you complete objective number 1. You go to objective number 2. Objective number 2 now becomes another independent chapter, which is chapter 5, which is objective number 2. Then you write the heading of that particular objective 2, and then you discuss it or you write it in the same format that you need in the introduction, material, method, result and discussion, or result and then discussion, that you complete it in a paper format. Then you go to objective number 3. If you have 3 objectives and you give it a chapter number 6, you write the same way. After which you go to objective number 7, if you have chapter number 7, if you have objective number 4, you write it in a paper format. That's the intention is here is each objective should be given an independent chapter, and they should be discussed in a paper-wise style, comprising the introduction, background introduction, material methods, results and discussion, or result and then discussion. That will be done. Then after, you will end up with the last objective, which will be reflected depending on the number of objectives you are having. The last chapter, which will be conclusion, recommendation, and area of future studies. Then from this section, you are now aware that when you decide to select writing your thesis or your dissertation in a paper-wise based style, this is the modality on how you can run off. Let's check on the other style. Let's check on the other style, which is chapter-wise based style. Chapter-wise based style. As what I tried to explain on the paper-wise based style, there is a minor difference of which you need to understand and need to differentiate between these two. Normally, this preliminary information are almost the same, but you need to give the distinction and all those things up to the abbreviations on paper, and other may be added. That's why I put etc. depending on the modality and the nature on the format of the institution or the organization or the university from which you are attached. Then after, in the chapter-wise based style, here, the objectives are not treated as an individual chapter. And therefore, they will be treated as the subsections within a particular chapter. I don't think if you are getting this. Anyway, you will understand because I will detailed here. Yeah, chapter 1, it will be the introduction. As normal, this will be the introductions of the general objectives or general study of your thesis. Then after, you'll go to the chapter 2 as normal, which is the review of the literature or literature review. As I said, whether empirical, theoretical, whatever, depending on the nature and the approach that you use, whether psychological, pure natural science, engineering, and lab-based studies or whatever. So it will depend on the nature of the study. There are styles on how the literature review should appear. And good enough, I have also a separate video or a class which tries to explain the main components on how should we consider while writing or preparing our literature review. And then we have the chapter 3. Under the chapter 3, this will be the research methodology. It differs from that one. Let's check here. When you were looking on chapter 3, it was descriptions of the study sites. But here, chapter 3 is a research methodology. Now, in this research methodology, you are going to explain about the study sites. You are going to explain the research design, the approach. You are going to explain about the method and data collection tools. You are going to start about the analytical procedures or experimental related procedures. Everything that you have undergone to all the objectives, they will be explained within a single chapter. And then after after this research methodology, you go to chapter number 4, which is results or the findings. Here now, under this results, there will be subsection. Objective number 1 will be now maybe 4.1. Then objective number 1, you explain about their results. There is no need of making another introduction, no material method. No. You have already done in the research and methodology section. Here, you simply give your results, complete the result of each objective within a subsection style. Then after, you will have to make discussions of each objectives in a subsection. Maybe chapter 4 or chapter 5, if it's the discussion, maybe 5.1. You give the name of the objective number 1, and then you discuss the result that you have already given in the chapter number 4 above. And then you came to the chapter number 7, which is conclusion, recommendation, and area for further studies. Hopefully, with this small kind of class, you will be able to differentiate these two styles of thesis writings and dissertation writing style. Hopefully, you enjoy the class of today, and I am sure this will be useful for you. And therefore, I would like once again to request you to subscribe if it's your first time to see this particular video, and you find this relevant to be shared by other friends. Share it and make sure that is saturated within. And if you find there is another relevant information, please leave a comment on my YouTube and enjoy it next time. Once again, good day. Thank you.